Well, it's a new month, and that means it's time for me to go back and review the top 10 best matches of the previous month. So I will be listing my top 10 favorite matches from the month of February 2015. But before I get to that, a couple odds and ends. Thank you to everybody that watched the Godzilla review video that I posted a couple days ago. Basically, it was all my Godzilla movie reviews that I did last year, and I condensed them all into one big video without music and without all the movie clips, so I won't get dinged for any copyright infringement. It was my understanding that a lot of people could not see Part 4, where I reviewed the TriStar film in the Millennium series, and sure enough, on the video, it got dinged for copyright usage because of me using the clips and the music and stuff, and it was blocked in certain places in I think they said certain areas globally. The video was blocked, but that should no longer be a problem. So if you are interested in seeing those videos, the link to the video is down below in the description box, and you can view it at your own discretion. Again, be forewarned, it is 9 hours long, but there is a table of contents, so you can jump to whichever movie, whichever review you want to see. So there's that. And if you want to sit down and watch the whole thing, get your popcorn ready and get ready because you're going to be there a while. So I finally got that out of the way, so that's good. A couple other things. I'm filming this video right before I'm getting ready to watch Ring of Honor's 13th anniversary show. I've decided to check out the pay-per-view. I have not followed Ring of Honor in quite a while, so I'm not really entirely sure what I'm going to be getting here, but it's more wrestling, and I thought, whatever, I'll give ROH another chance and see if they can hold my attention and see how we do. The major point of interest for me is that Samoa Joe is going to be appearing at the event, which is really cool. I did a video talking about what is Samoa Joe going to do, where is he going to go and everything, and he's going back to Ring of Honor just in time for their War of the Worlds show, which I did see their Ring of Honor's War of the Worlds show with New Japan talents. I saw that last year, and I enjoyed that show. I remember the Steen and Nakamura match being incredible. So Samoa Joe's coming back just in time for that event, and I think that could be very interesting, depending on who they pair him up with and what he does. I think, like I said, there are plenty of interesting possibilities of who he could face in a ROH versus New Japan, or even just him going to New Japan, that type of setting. I mean, there's a lot of guys they could have him go with, and I think it would be very interesting. There's him and Iishi, him and Makabe, him and Nakamura, I think would be good. Him and Tanahashi, Okada would be a great one to do. There's plenty of interesting possibilities there. So I think, him coming back just in time for that show. I think, again, if Samoa Joe can still go, and if he can still bring the fire that he did the last time he was in Ring of Honor, which I can't believe that was over 10 years ago, I think, was the last time he worked for Ring of Honor. It doesn't feel like it was that long ago, but man. And even like his first few years in TNA, where he was, pushed pretty hard and before they fucked him up with bad booking. So it'll be interesting to see. I think the change in setting will be good for Joe, and I think... and I think it would be good for TNA because they weren't really getting anything out of him in terms of, they'd already, like I said, their booking had already fucked him up, and there wasn't a whole lot to be gained from him on their end either. So I think it was best for both parties to, kind of change setting and let Joe go on and do something else, and TNA can focus on something else besides trying to reinvent Joe every year, which is something they constantly tried to do. But so there's that, and I'm going to be checking out the show tonight. I'll have a review for it sometime later in the week, so be on the lookout for that. A couple other things I wanted to bring attention to. I did watch TNA this week. I did watch Raw this week. Neither show left much of an impression on me, which is par for the course at this point. I'm really, at this point, I'm only watching them because it's wrestling, and I do a wrestling channel. And it's not that TNA shows are bad, it's just that they leave no impression when they're done. And Raw's kind of the same thing. And the weird thing about Raw is that we're heading into WrestleMania season, and I'm not really feeling it. I'm not feeling like, and not the shows are terrible, it's just that I'm not feeling that Mania vibe. Like, oh my God, WrestleMania is right around the corner. It's just, I'm not getting that sense of urgency or anything. And of course, poor Daniel Bryan, after Raw this week, I'm like, I still have no idea what they're going to do with him at WrestleMania. I mean, how do you have your most over... And I'm not saying he needed to be in the title match. It's one of those things where it's like, all right, Vince, you don't want to put Daniel Bryan in the main event. You don't want to put him in the title match. You want to go with Roman Reigns. Okay, fine. I'll go with that. But let's compromise here. All right, can you have Daniel Bryan in a position where he could be in a really big match at WrestleMania, where he's like the culmination of a storyline? He's coming back from neck surgery. He's one of the most popular guys, the most popular guy in the company. It's like, come on, it's all right, you don't want to put him in the title match, but have something waiting for him when he gets back. Have a big storyline in place so that when he comes back and you're getting into that Mania push, you can have a really big semi-main event match for Bryan come WrestleMania time, and it'll be big. It'll be fine. No, we're going to stick him... It looks like they're going to stick him in the Intercontinental title match, which is going to be their kind of excuse to cram as many people onto the card as possible type of match. I think Ziggler's going to be in it. Ambrose is going to be in it. Wade Barrett's going to be it, which, not that the match is going to be bad, but I'm just getting a little tired of the whole, oh, we don't know what to do with these guys, so let's just stick them in a gimmick match. And it's not like Money in the Bank where at least the prize actually matters. The Intercontinental title has been so inconsequential for so long that it's hard to really give a shit. And it's actually sad to say this is the highest profile Intercontinental title match at WrestleMania, God, since like... probably since WrestleMania 2000 when they did Angle, Benoit, and Jericho. And even going further back than that, I mean, probably... Oh, God. It's been a long time. It's been a long time since there's been, like, a really meaningful WrestleMania Intercontinental title match. So, but again, it's just like, oh, well, we don't know what to do with these guys, so let's just put them in a ladder match and let them go out there and try and kill each other, and that'll be fine. And TNA does the same thing with the X Division guys. They do it all the time, where it's like, oh, we don't know what to do with these guys, so let's just stick them in a Thunderdome, or whatever the fuck they called that, Steel Asylum. Or let's just stick them in a 10-man ladder match. Or let's just stick them in an Ultimate X match. And that's why Ultimate X doesn't mean shit anymore. I mean, goddamn, Ultimate X was like one of their big gimmick match creation. I mean, that was their Hell in a Cell. That was their Elimination Chamber. But they did it so many times that it doesn't resonate anymore. It's like, oh, we're doing Ultimate X. Who cares? You've done it so many times. It doesn't matter. But that's not the point. So yeah, I mean, I think the ladder match, those guys will go out there and kill themselves and do these incredible spots for a prize that the fans aren't really all that invested in. And it really just feels like, I really do feel like all of those guys, like Barrett and Ziggler and Ambrose and Bryan, all deserve better. I feel like there should be... And they had something there with Barrett and Ambrose, but they're kind of like, oh, we're going to combine it with everything else. It'll just get lost in the shuffle. And of course, I have to bring this up. Apparently, Miz is going to be in the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal, which means that we are not going to get Miz and Mizdow one-on-one at WrestleMania. Why? Why is that not a WrestleMania match? That should absolutely be a WrestleMania match. It's a storyline that you've been building since, what, September of last year? It's the longest running storyline you have in the company right now. The fans love the babyface. They hate the heel. It's perfect. And then you do your big payoff at WrestleMania. Why would you not give them that Mania spot? And instead, they're just going to take up time in the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal, which, I mean, fuck, you should have done that at the Royal Rumble. Then they kind of dropped the ball with that one. So I don't get it. Whatever. I mean, this is kind of the modern-day Virgil and DiBiase, which that was one of my favorite feuds as a kid, that whole storyline. And some people look back on it and it's like, oh, that was beneath DiBiase. I'm like, I thought it was a great showcase for DiBiase. It showed how great of a heel he really was, that he could make Virgil look like a star of all people. Because what did Virgil do after that was over? Almost nothing. It was just he had that one feud and that was it. And I don't get why that wouldn't be a WrestleMania match. And why is it not a WrestleMania match? Because they have to make time for the part-timers. And that's kind of goes back to some of the things that Punk talked about, where we're kind of at this point now where the fans are kind of conditioned to only give a shit when the part-timers show up, whether it be Undertaker or Rock, or I guess you can throw Sting at this point. Triple H, even though he's on TV every week, he doesn't wrestle all the time. So is that you can throw Lesnar in there, even though he's the champion. He's only there part-time. But speaking of Brock Lesnar, I should definitely bring this up. The whole thing, I guess, the whole craziness that all went on with Raw this week, where Lesnar was advertised to be on the show and he did not appear on camera, and it turns out that he walked out on the show about midway through for whatever reason. Now, what the reason was can really only be speculated on at this point. I've heard, and it really just generated this huge thing on the internet where people were just throwing all kinds of crazy theories out there. There was a rumor going around that Roman Reigns failed a piss test, and Lesnar didn't want to work with him because of it. Because he doesn't want to be, because Lesnar might be going back to UFC, and he doesn't want to be associated with the steroid scandal right before he leaves the WWE. I heard that one. I heard that he's upset about his Mania pay. He's upset about his merchandise pay. Whatever. There's a lot of different things that were being thrown around. Personally, I think if it's Lesnar that has a problem, I think Lesnar's money is very important to Brock Lesnar. So I think if he was upset about something, it was most likely due to his pay. Most likely had something to do with something relating to his pay. I don't know what, but if I had to guess, it was probably something like that. I doubt that it was anything creative, because as long as it doesn't make him look bad, I don't think Lesnar's going to care. And WWE is so gung-ho about protecting him and making him look as strong as possible. I don't think that they would have suggested anything ridiculous for him. And I don't think he cares who he works with, quite honestly. I think he's one of those guys that says, look, as long as he gets paid, I don't think he cares, but all that much. So I'm going to take a guess and say that it has something to do with money. A lot of people, again, the internet goes crazy during the course of the week. Lesnar will be at WrestleMania. I don't think that that's a concern. I think Lesnar will definitely be wrestling in the main event at WrestleMania against Roman Reigns. I think that match is going to happen. If Lesnar walked out and they didn't have him for Mania, they would be royally fucked like nobody's business. That would be like, oh my God, that would be embarrassing beyond belief, because the guy that you basically fed everybody to. You gave him the streak. You gave him John Cena on a silver platter. You let him be the champion as a part-timer, so he's hardly ever on TV. And then when it comes time for him to drop the belt, he walks out. That would be embarrassing. That would leave them in a really, really, really shitty position, and they'd be royally boned if that were to happen. But I don't think that's the case. I think Lesnar will be at WrestleMania. He'll drop the title to Reigns, and we'll let anything that falls out from that, happen. But so that was a big thing that happened this week, and I thought was worth commenting on. Another thing I do want to bring up to be more positive, I liked NXT show this week. I thought it was really good at setting up things for the future. Finn Balor continues to look like a strong number one contender type. He wrestled Brian Kendrick, who, I'll be honest, I've never been super high on Brian Kendrick. He's one of those internet favorites that people just loved and were convinced that he was one of the best. And I never saw it. I just never saw what the big deal was with him. But, he's not a bad talent. I just never saw what the big deal was. But he had a good match with Balor, and it was good. A good win for Finn to continue his build-up. I thought Bayley and Becky had a pretty good match this week as well. All sorts of good things are going on in NXT, and they're setting up a lot of things for the future. The Tommy Breeze feud, I think, is looking really good. Now, speaking of a returning star that I like that Rhino's on the show, because I think Rhino brings, I've always been a big fan of his, because I think he brings an intensity that's almost, it's almost Ultimate Warrior-like if Ultimate Warrior made sense. And I'm not saying like he's as over as the Warrior or anything like that, but his promos and everything and the character is just so intense that he really sets himself apart from the other kind of musclehead type of guys that are on the show. And I've always liked Rhino. He doesn't get a lot of credit, but at various points of his career, I think he's been a strong contributor to whatever promotion he worked for. I thought in the dying days of ECW, he was one of the few good things they had going. One of the few fresh talents they had is like, yeah, this guy's pretty cool. I like this guy. When he was in TNA, he was one of the few ex-WWE guys that I looked at and was like, no, he's a TNA guy. I felt like he had carved his own identity in TNA and really felt like he worked his ass off while he was over there. He wasn't just writing off past glories, and did a really good job, I thought. And, when they were really getting into bringing in guys like Christian and Kurt Angle and all those other guys, Rhino was the one guy I looked at and was like, no, he's a TNA guy. I view him as more of a TNA guy than an ex-WWE guy, because he just... of course, he got to do a lot more in TNA than he ever did in WWE, but... I think Rhino could be a good pickup for NXT, and it'll be good, not necessarily to put the title on or anything like that, but having worked with guys like Neville and Tyler Breeze and Finn Balor and all those other guys, and him and Steen, I think, could have a really good match. So I think he's a good hand, and I think it's good to incorporate guys like that every once in a while. He's a good steady hand. He's reliable. He's And there's a lot of other positives to him as well. So I think he's good to have around. Again, not necessarily main event, not necessarily world title, but he's good to have around. And he fills out the roster nicely. So, yeah, I like that. And then I saw Lucha Underground this week, and that show was terrific. I thought the episode they had this week was one of the best shows they've ever done. And again, it's all about like setting up things for the future. The Mundo and Cuerno feud, they had their match this week, and it ended in a double countout. And they had this awesome brawl all over the arena, the temple, and makes me excited to see the next match. God, what else did they do this week? They had Puma and Cage in a non-title match, and this is coming like a month after they had their first match, which I already put that match over heavily. And Cage won thanks to Conan throwing in the towel for Puma. So, okay, we're going to get that championship match at some point down the road, and Puma looks like he's going to get annihilated because Cage continues to look like a monster, so that was very good. Aerostar and Drago are having a best-of-5 series now to determine the winner of some prize that Dario has determined, but it's a mystery, so we don't know what it is. If I had to guess, it would probably be a title shot, but it might be something different from that, so we'll see. But again, it's very interesting. It gives those 5 matches that they're having, and they've already had 2, but it gives the remaining 3 matches like a reason to care and proper context. It's like, all right, the winner of this is going to get some kind of a prize, and we don't know what the prize is. So it's got that mystery surrounding it. It has the proper context, and because of that, the matches mean something. And a lot of matches today just don't mean anything. So that's something that Lucha Underground is pretty good about, I think. So I thought the show they had this week was stellar, and again, it's making me excited for things that they're going to do down the road. And here we go. Now it is time for me to list my top 10 favorite wrestling matches from the month of February 2015. I should note that this list, actually, there were a lot of options throughout the month that I think I ended up having a list of about 20 by the time, 20 or 25 or something like that. And it was mostly matches on TV. It was mostly matches, like a bunch of little matches here and there that I really liked. Like at one point, Ryback and Harper from an episode of Raw was on there. I was like, that was a good power match. I enjoyed that. Let's put it on the maybe list. And of course, it didn't make it, but there were a lot of like little matches this month that I enjoyed for one reason or another. I should note, and I'm probably going to catch shit for it, but I don't really care, because I think I'm the only person that did not fall in love with the Roman Reigns-Daniel Bryan match at Fastlane. There will be no matches from Fastlane on this list. Not that all of them were bad, it's just that they weren't any of my favorites. And Reigns and Bryan, which everyone seemed to love, I'm not trying to shit on Roman Reigns and be a negative Nelly when I say this. It really has nothing to do with him or his ability. It has nothing to do with Bryan having an off night or anything like that. It's really just how the match was booked. And I didn't like the story. I wasn't, and not that I disliked the match. I was just like, the story they told just didn't do it for me, because it's like, oh, Daniel Bryan's going to dominate the whole time, and then Reigns is going to beat him with one spear, and then blah, blah, blah. And then, they're going to pull Super Cena. That's what they're going to do. It has nothing to do with Reigns being a piece of shit. It has nothing to do with Bryan, having an off night. They both performed that story to the best of their abilities. I just was not a fan of that story, and that's just my take. Although I will say, Roman Reigns sold a lot better than John Cena usually does when they do that with him. But, anyways, let's get on to the list. Number 10. This actually came out right at the end of the month, and I just put over this last episode of Lucha Underground, and the main event of that show is number 10 on my list. Johnny Mundo versus King Cuerno from the 225 episode of Lucha Underground. They built this feud up for a couple of weeks. It started when Cuerno attacked Mundo during his match with Cage at the start of the month. And this is where the grudge match finally happened. Well, finally, I mean, it's been less than a month. But they went out there, and I thought it had a really good, intense match, and then followed it up after the double countout, and then brawled all over the place, and then tore down the temple. And the brawl was so well done, and I've said before that, to me, like, pre-match and post-match counts as part of the match, because it's building in before the match is building into the story, and after the match is following up on the story. So it's why Randy Savage and Miss Elizabeth reuniting at WrestleMania 7. I count that as part of the career-ending match, because it's the epilogue. Basically, it's part of that story. And And I just thought all of this was really well done. I enjoyed the match itself, and then when they did that crazy brawl afterwards, I'm like, I really enjoyed that. So, yeah, we'll make that my number 10 favorite match of the month. All well and good. Number 9 is Charlotte versus Sasha Banks versus Bayley versus Becky Lynch for the NXT Women's Championship from NXT TakeOver Rival. There will be a few matches from TakeOver Rival on this list, which to the surprise of absolutely no one. But it was just another very good women's match from NXT. They typically do that for these specials. They put the women in a position to succeed and contribute to the show, which is what the WWE's main show is not really doing. And obviously there was the whole thing about give divas a chance or whatever, that whole thing that trended. There's a bit of an issue going on with AJ and AJ Lee tweeting something to Stephanie McMahon and all the controversy that's going on there. But the problem with the divas in the WWE on the main show is that they are treated like filler, and because of that, the fans don't care. That's the problem. It's all about, they present them in a way where we're not supposed to care about them. So when it comes time to do the pay-per-view match, the fans don't care. And that's what happens. And that's why so many Divas matches are not received very well, or, people use them as piss breaks. And that's not the girl's fault, for the most part. Every now and then you get a girl that they try to push that doesn't belong in that spot. But for the most part, it's just like, look, they're in a position where people aren't supposed to care about them. So when it comes time to do the match, people don't care. NXT is the exact opposite of that, where they put these characters in positions to build a storyline around them, and they let them get their personalities over, they let them get their characters over, so that when it comes time to do the big match, it actually means something, it actually matters. And these 4 girls went out there and had a hell of an athletic display, where they just, I think when I did my TakeOver review, I said it was very X Division-like in some ways, with them flying all over the place and doing big spots off the top and all sorts of crazy stuff. And it was a big deal because there was a title change and Sasha Banks won the title. And I think that was a very good move. I think Sasha has really come into her own as a character and as a worker, and I think she's going to be a great champion over there in NXT. I think she's what a women's champion should be. Just a great character, and she plays her character to the hilt, to perfection, and she can go in the ring. And I think she's going to be really good going forward for them. Okay, next up, number 8 is Johnny Mundo versus Cage from another episode of Lucha Underground, actually from the start of the month, February 4th, that episode of Lucha Underground. And I put over Cage's match with Puma from last month and was like, wow, this guy Cage, he's really good. He's a really great athletic big man. He went out there with Johnny Mundo the next week, and that match was arguably better than the match with Puma. That was just an outstanding match. I was like, wow, this was great. And, of course, Johnny Mundo's always been a great seller, so putting him in there with a powerhouse like Cage is going to be going to work really well in that aspect. And they just molded together very naturally. And then, of course, King Cuerno attacked Mundo and set up their feud, and then Cage got the big win over Mundo, which sets him up as a contender for Puma down the road. So it was another one of those situations where everybody came off looking better. Everybody involved in this situation came off looking better. Even Mundo, who lost, said, oh, well, now he's got this feud with Cuerno, and he can splinter off and do that. And Cuerno now has a direction. He has something to do, and Cage gets built up to Puma. And now Puma is kind of waiting in the background because he's selling an injury, and he's got to look at the situation and go, oh, my God, this monster's coming for me. It's, this is going to be bad. So, yeah, it was just a really well-booked match, really well-booked situation, and set up some good storyline things down the road. Okay, and next up is the lone WWE match, well, the lone non-NXT WWE match on the list. Daniel Bryan versus Seth Rollins from the February 2nd episode of Raw, with the winner getting to face Roman Reigns for the WrestleMania title shot in the main event of Fastlane. Excuse me. Daniel Bryan and Seth Rollins are great. They're awesome. Daniel Bryan is the best babyface on the main roster, and Seth Rollins right now is the best heel they have. So it only seemed natural, right? It only seemed natural that you put them together and it makes magic. And sure enough, they went out there, had a great match. Although ultimately we all knew, everybody knew that the winner of this match was just going to lose to Reigns at the pay-per-view anyway. But you know, in getting to that point, at least we got this really great match to set it up. So, two guys I like, they get the main event spot at Raw, and they tore the house down. It was great. So, and in an era where Raw is so often, the main event is usually just the same tag match that we see over and over and over and over again, and we see a lot of the same matches on Raw. To get one that at least broke away and was different a little bit and had a prize that actually meant something in the grand scheme, and the fact that it was the main event of the show made it even better. So really liked that match. It was great. Loved it. Wonderful. Next up is from New Japan's New Beginning show in Osaka. Kota Ibushi versus Tomoaki Honma. In what was one of the better matches from the first show. It was just an outstanding match. And watching Wrestle Kingdom 9, Ibushi had that really great match with Nakamura and did a great job in that. Honma, he was in a tag match, so I didn't really get much of a sense of who he was as a talent. All I knew is that he was charismatic and people really seemed to like him and they reacted to him really well. And he did get a big win over the Bullet Club. But I didn't really get a real good sense of how he is as a worker. He went out there with Ibushi and had a hell of a match. I thought it was just a great match. There's really nothing else to say about it. Ibushi got the win, but by the time it was over, both of them came off looking really good. It was just a great athletic contest, and one of the things that really impressed me about Honma was like all the different variations he has on the headbutt. Like all these different ways that he can throw these headbutts out there, and he just throws caution to the wind and does all these really cool spots. So he's got this kind of daredevil attitude to him that I really like. And more and more, I'm becoming more of a Honma fan. Just stay tuned. There's more to talk about in regards to him. But overall, I thought in the Osaka show, they had one of the better matches on the show. It was pretty terrific. Next up, number 5, Adrian Neville versus Kevin Owens from the February 18th episode of NXT. It was a non-title match. It was the week after Takeover Rival. And Kevin Steen went out there and once again beat up another top babyface on NXT. They had a great match. It was great back and forth action and everything. It looked like Neville was a better match for Owens than Zayn was, meaning in the way it was booked, where Zayn pretty much got destroyed. Neville actually looked like he had a chance to win and beat him and ultimately fell as Owens got another big win over another top star on NXT. And Kevin Owens continues to look like this dominant force that's going to dominate NXT for a while. So I think he adds a lot to the show. And right now, I mean, he's got Zayn is going to return at some point and face him. He's got Finn Balor waiting in the wings. And now he's got this little side thing going on with Alex Riley, which from what I hear is going to ultimately result in a match. So storyline-wise, Kevin Owens is going to be very busy, which is very good. And I think he's a good focal point for the show at the moment. I think he's really stepped in well in the role, and this match, pretty much followed suit from what we saw at NXT TakeOver, where he looks like a brute, and then he comes out and faces Neville, and once again looks like a brute, even though Neville probably got in a little bit more than Zayn did. And in the end, he still looks like a monster, and Owens, I'm really looking forward to see how this title reign develops, because he's doing really, really well at the moment. Number 4, AJ Styles versus Hiroshi Tanahashi for the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship from New Japan's New Beginning show in Osaka. This was the main event of night 1, and it was a great match. It was just a great title match. AJ usually delivers when he's in big matches like this, and it was just a stellar athletic contest. From what I've been told, the matches that these two had last year and before are much better, which is kind of surprising to me because I can't imagine them doing too much better than this. And unfortunately, because I know who won those previous matches, I'm not going to be coming into it with the same fresh mind that I did this one, so it's going to be hard to kind of sell that one, the other matches, as being better than me because I don't have the live experience behind it, or that first time viewing where I don't know who's going to win. So that's kind of hard, but overall, this match they had was great. I thought it was a great main event to the first show. I thought it was just a great main event match. Not as good as Tanahashi and Okada from Wrestle Kingdom 9, but still very good in its own right, and still a very good main event, and one of the better matches from those two shows that they did in the New Beginning shows. And I look forward to seeing what they do here, because like I said, I'm going to be following New Japan a little bit more closely. I'm going to watch the New Japan Cup. I'm definitely going to check out the G1 Climax, because the last episode I saw of New Japan on Access, they showed matches from the 2013 G1 Climax, and I love that setup. I love that idea. And it looks like a very strong tournament, so I definitely want to check it out this year and experience it for the first time. Obviously, I'm not going to watch every single match. It's a round-robin tournament, so there's going to be a lot of matches, but I will definitely check out some of it. It'll be fun to follow. I think it happens sometime in the late summer, so here's hoping I get to check out some of that, and then here's hope I enjoy it. So, yeah, I definitely have that to look forward to. Number 3 is the main event to NXT TakeOver Rival. It'll be Sami Zayn defending the NXT Championship against Kevin Owens, where Kevin Owens defeated Zayn to win the title by forfeit. Or not by forfeit, by referee stoppage. It was just a great main event. Great, well-booked main event in terms of setting up Owens as this unstoppable monster and Sami Zayn as this never-say-die babyface. Like I said, there were so many little touches in that match that really sold it for me about what a brute Owens is and what just a lovable babyface Sami Zayn is. I mean, Sami Zayn, for all intents and purposes, is basically the best babyface in wrestling right now. That's what I think anyway. And he played his role great here, and I really felt bad for him by the time the match was over. And that's that kind of storytelling that wrestling should try to achieve, and what wrestlers should strive to do when they become wrestlers. Like, all right, how can I get the fans on my side? How can I get the fans to sympathize with me? Or if you're the heel, how can I get the fans to view me as a threat or get them to, hate me? Although getting fans to hate you seems to be very hard these days, especially for guys like Owens who have a big indie following and everything. But overall, I was really impressed with this main event. It was great. It made me excited for future rematches between the two. How is Sami going to bounce back from this? What's he going to do when he comes back? Who's his next victim? Well, he's got Balor waiting in the wings. What's going to happen there? So a lot of interesting things were set up through this match, and it was a great match all of its own anyway. So loved it. It was great. Number 2 on my list, also from NXT TakeOver Rival, Adrian Neville versus Finn Balor in the number one contenders tournament. The finals of that particular tournament. The tournament was really good throughout the most part, or throughout all the time that they had been doing it, and it's a good way to set up a new top contender for down the road. And these two went out there and just tore it down, I thought. This was just a great back-and-forth athletic contest with the title shot hanging in the balance, and it's an exciting pairing because we hadn't seen it before in NXT. It was just great, and Finn Balor has obviously won a lot of people over. He's won me over. I mean, I already liked him as Prince Devitt, but in NXT he's just doing amazingly well. So giving him the win here, I thought was a good move, and I think him and Owens could potentially have a very exciting match for the title at some point. These two went out there and just had a great athletic match where a lot of the counters were very good, a lot of the action was very good. It started off slow and then built up more and more, and it was a very exciting match. And of course the consequences mattered because the winner was going to get a title shot. So you had that big thing going into it that made it interesting. So overall, I just thought they had a stellar match. It was my pick for match of the night from NXT TakeOver, and it was just great. I loved it. But my number one favorite match of the month was from New Japan's New Beginning show in Sendai. It was Tomoaki Honma stepping in for Togi Makabe versus Tomohiro Iishi for the vacated Never Openweight Championship. And the reason I'm picking this match as my favorite is because with me personally, it started on a downturn because right away I was like, wait a minute, what happened to Makabe? I wanted Ishii versus Makabe too. What happened? It's like, well, Makabe had to vacate the title because he was ill, and the match had to be changed as a result, so they put Honma in Makabe's spot, and him and Ishii were going to fight for the vacated title. And I was like, oh man, I wanted that rematch. So initially, right off the bat, I'm disappointed. And I was like, man, that's not cool. I wanted Makabe Ishii too. But Honma and Ishii went out there and tore it the fuck down. I mean, they went out there and had this stiff, brutal, hard-hitting, back and forth, excellent match that far surpassed my expectations and really caught me by surprise. And by the time it was over, my feelings of disappointment were gone. So to overcome that negativity, which was, I wasn't blaming New Japan, and it was just a bad situation. I was just disappointed in that aspect. I'm sorry that it happened. I'm not blaming anybody for it. It was just one of those unfortunate things that happened. But to start me off at a point where I'm disappointed and then get me to a point where I'm jumping up and down and shouting, I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like, blah, this is great. I love it. That's pretty remarkable, and I think that counts for a lot. So for that, to start me off below at a low point and then get me up to this ultimate high, I'm going to give that the match of the month. So Honma versus Iishi for the vacated Never Openweight title from the New Japan show in Sendai is going to be my favorite match of the month. Kudos to both of you. Now with that, it's time to pick my favorite wrestling brand for the month of February. I had it down to two. It was either going to be Lucha Underground or NXT. I think both shows have been stellar this month. I think a lot of the storylines that they've done and a lot of the matches that they've done and everything else, I think both of those shows really stood out this month. I thought were both very strong week to week, and I'm at a point where I can't wait to watch NXT and I can't wait to watch Lucha Underground because I want to see what happens and I want to see what future matches they build to. I don't want to see the matches that they build to. So both companies, I think, are doing very good at producing shows that wrestling fans should check out. I highly recommend watching NXT week to week. I highly recommend Lucha Underground. Lucha Underground is very different from most other wrestling promotions, but that's one of its strengths. It's not a WWE cutout carbon copy. It's its own thing, and in that, it is very good at what it's trying to be. And I think Lucha Underground has been stellar this month, from the build-up of Cage to the Johnny Mundo King Cuerno feud, to the matches with Drago and Aerostar, to the Phoenix and Mil Muertos feud, to the introduction of Alberto El Patron. They've done a lot of great things on their show this month. Ultimately, though, because NXT TakeOver Rival was such a strong show and was so good, I'm going to give brand of the month to NXT. And once again, they've set up some really good things for the future. They have Sasha Banks as their women's champion, which is great. They have Kevin Owens as their world champion, and a lot of things lined up for him, and there's a lot of stuff to look forward to in that regard. You got Tyler Breeze and Hideo Itami, and they're feuding right now, which I could really get behind those series of matches. You've got Solomon Crow coming in, and he looks like he's going to be a really interesting character. I look forward to seeing where he goes going forward. But mainly, Lucha Underground and NXT have a lot of the same strengths, but really it's the... It was the fact that NXT did the TakeOver special, and that show was so good and so well done that I'm going to give NXT the brand of the month for the month of February. So congratulations to NXT. You did a great job. So, yeah, those are my 10 favorite matches, and NXT was my favorite brand of the month. So hope you all enjoyed that. I will be back later this week with a review of Ring of Honor's 13th anniversary special, which is getting ready to start. So I got to shut down over here and get to watching that. But until then, I will see you all later, and y'all enjoy your week.